Right, so this is where the rhubarb wine is at. It's in demijohns. So it's been through various stages. Obviously there's boiling the fruit to make a concentrate. That was then put in a tub once I'd strained out most of the pulp. That was then put in a tub, left to cool, and we've added sugar, yeast, and with rhubarb I've found if you want a nice clear wine at the end of it, use pectic enzyme. If you just put the fruit in raw and pour boiling hot water over it and let it and make the wine that way, you tend not to need the pectic enzyme. But I found if you boil the fruit, you get a much better flavour. So this wine really does taste a lot like rhubarb, which you would hope it would. The colour, which doesn't really come out on the camera quite so well, is I don't know, so it would be a white wine, we'll put it that way. It's that kind of colour. It always looks a bit funny in the demijohns as well. As you can see, it's quite clear already, but this needs a bit more time. As I said, it's been through several processes, so it's had the first, what I would call the first fermentation. So it's been left in a big white tub with yeast and sugar, and then after a while we've racked it, which is just filtering the wine and getting rid of any bits and pieces you don't want. And this, the other day I racked, so all the sediment that was in the bottom is gone, and what we're left with is a more or less drinkable wine. And I think it was May this year that I started that off. So you're May, June, July, August, so 3 months. Now, as I said, it's perfectly drinkable now, but it will get better with time, like any wine does. So the best thing to do with it is leave them. So the next step for this now will be to leave it for a couple of weeks, see if it clears up anymore. If it doesn't, there are steps you can take. You can use other, there are products out there to help you clear wine, but we tend not to use too much of that. We don't use sulfites or anything like that, so we try and keep the wine as simple as possible. And that's where we're at. I mean, as it's a homemade wine, if it is not quite as clear as perhaps a shop bought wine, and don't forget they've all been through various filtration processes, if this isn't quite as clear, it doesn't matter, as long as it tastes nice and goes with food or whatever. And most of the wines, like I said, I've been making wines now for, well, since we've had allotments. That was one of the reasons we started growing stuff on the allotment, and you wonder what to do with it. So wine is a good thing. Obviously if you don't drink, then wine's not going to be much interest to you. But we find it's a good use for the things we make. And this year we had quite a lot of rhubarb. So yeah, so this is, I would say, an almost drinkable state. And it's fairly simple. With some of the, with any of the wines, it is literally 4 ingredients. So you've got water, sugar, fruit, and a yeast that is appropriate for the products, for the wine. With rhubarb, I've used a general purpose yeast, but you can get yeasts that are better for red fruit, like blackberries, plums and that kind of thing, and obviously grapes. You can get ones that will make a very good sort of Bordeaux style wine for grapes. They're good. So yeah, the only other thing that I put in this, I said, was pectolase, the pectic enzyme to kill it. That's why it's so clear now, and it will clear a little bit more over the next couple of weeks, and then we will bottle it up. And bottling it up is literally just a case of running it through the filter again into a big tub, and then we just put it into bottles and put corks in them, and then we leave it. So I always, where possible, but most of the wines we make, we leave them for a good few weeks, a couple of months before we even open a bottle. And then if we drink a bottle and it's not quite right, we'll just leave it. You know, so we always have wine in the house. So that's the rhubarb. That's where we're at. Most of the process is time. So some of the steps do take a bit more time, but once you've done those, you just leave it. I say this spent its time in demijohns for a good 3 or 4 weeks before I even bothered to look at it. So it is one of those things that if you put in the initial work, so you process the fruit, after that you can pretty much leave it. You don't want to forget about it, obviously, but you can pretty much leave it. So that's where our rhubarb wine's at. So you can almost see There's a chair at the back there somewhere you can almost see. And you can see the little preserving jars for it as well. So it is quite clear, and it is actually quite nice. So that's rhubarb wine, and this is almost ready to bottle. Okay, thanks for watching.